Is my mic working? Alright, okay, it is working. Alright. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Aero Show. I'm your host, Aero, here for the show. Oh, and today we have a very long. We're gonna have a very long show today. Obviously, we have a lot of topics. It is Wednesday, 3rd August, 11:15, and we have a lot of topics that I wanted to discuss today. Some interesting ones, pretty big topics like the Nancy Pelosi thing, and yeah, we're gonna get into all of that. And yeah, all right. I think we should just get started. I don't have my thing open. One second. Of course, I forget. I have to open in a new profile. Okay, so I think we should just get right into this, and so yeah, we're gonna start off with the politics section of the news stories that I want to cover today, and obviously the big story of today, the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is visiting Taiwan, one of the first U.S. House officials to ever visit Taiwan in literally decades. So this has caused a lot of tensions, especially between China and Taiwan. And China is putting a military and economic pressure on Taiwan, but we'll get into all of that later. So yeah, these are live updates that I'm gonna be talking about. And one second, I forgot to. Okay. So these are live updates what I'm covering from CNN World. So this should be pretty recent of what is going on. So yeah, this article, I mean not article, these articles are by CNN World. It'll be down in the description for you to read. So yeah, what have we covered here? The U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said she wanted to make it unequivocally clear that the U.S. will not abandon Taiwan after meeting Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen and visiting the self-ruled island's legislator on Wednesday. So that is today actually. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi called Pelosi's visit a complete farce and warned that those who play with fire will perish. Beijing said the trip would have a severe impact on U.S.-China relations and announced the launch of exercises and targeted military operations around Taiwan in response. Pelosi's Taiwan visit ended on Wednesday with her departure for South Korea, and all part for an Asia tour by congressional delegation that had stopped in Singapore and Malaysia. The trip to Taipei went ahead despite warnings from Biden administration's officials about China's potential reaction. So yeah, we're gonna play catch up today, and yeah, so this was 12 hours and 46 minutes ago. We're not gonna cover a lot of posts today because there are 48. So yeah, it is 1 p.m. in Taipei. Here's what you need to know: Taipei, the capital city of Taiwan. So, U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi met with Taiwanese leaders and lawmakers on Wednesday after arriving in the self-governing island late Tuesday night. The high-profile visit, which China has vowed to respond to, is part of a larger Asia tour by U.S. congressional delegation. Here's the latest. Meeting with lawmakers. Pelosi started the day by visiting Taiwan's parliament, where she delivered remarks during a conversation with Taiwanese lawmakers from different parties. However, she stopped short of giving a formal speech in front of the full House. Deputy Speaker welcome. Tsai Ching-sheng, the deputy speaker of Taiwanese legislature, thanked Pelosi for her visit during the parliamentary meeting, hailing her as a guiding light in safeguarding human rights. Tiananmen mention. This might still get me demonetized on YouTube, as YouTube doesn't really like people talking about the Tiananmen Square massacre. But anyway, Nancy touched on our long-standing support for human rights, referring to her previous 1991 trip to Asia, where she unfurled a small banner in Beijing that read, "To those who died for democracy in China." It was just 2 years after the Tiananmen Square massacre, a brutal military crackdown that killed pro-democracy protesters in the Chinese capital. Our visit was about human rights, Nancy said. Civilian honor. Pelosi then met with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen, who bestowed upon the speaker Taiwan's highest civilian honor. U.S. commitment. Speaking beside President Tsai, Nancy praised Taiwan as one of the world's freest societies and reiterated America's solidarity with the island. She wanted to make it unequivocally clear that we will not abandon our commitment to Taiwan, and we are proud of our enduring friendship, she added. Tsai's comments. President Tsai called Nancy one of Taiwan's most devoted friends, and the island will firmly uphold its sovereignty and do whatever it takes to strengthen its self-defense capabilities, Tsai said, adding Taiwan will not back down. China's response. The Chinese Foreign Ministry released a lengthy statement on Tuesday after Nancy's arrival in Taipei, saying that it would definitely take all necessary measures to resolutely safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity. The visit has a severe impact on the political foundation of China-U.S. relations, it warned. Military exercises. China military said that it was on high alert and would conduct exercises around Taiwan in response to Nancy's trip, saying in statements it was launching a series targeted military operations to counteract the situation. Close eye on response. The Taiwan's defense ministry expressed a solemn condemnation of China's live fire drills and said it was keeping a close watch on Beijing's military activities around the island. Oh, okay. So it is 8:15 a.m. in Taipei, Taiwan. Here's what you need to know. So I think this is 8:15 a.m. On Wednesday. So today morning. I think Taiwan is 3 hours ahead of us. Yeah, I think 3 to 4 hours ahead of us. So might be 7 in India. Let me just reduce the exposure there so it's a little bit easier to read. All right. So, the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi landed in Taiwan Tuesday evening, marking a significant show of support for the self-ruled island despite China's threats of retaliation over the visit. Here's the latest. Nancy's arrival. Nancy and the U.S. congressional delegation landed in Taipei late on Tuesday, greeted by the... we have already... we've already covered those two. So this is a new one. ADIZ incursion. ADIZ, for you guys, I don't know what it is. It is the Air Defense Identification Zone of a country. So yeah, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense said 21 Chinese warplanes made incursions into its Air Defense Identification Zone. Oh, it's right there, actually. I didn't have to look that up. On its air defense identification zone on Tuesday. In response, the Taiwanese military issued radio warnings and deployed air defense missile systems to monitor the activities, it added. Pelosi's schedule. The House Speaker is expected to visit Taiwan's presidential office, where she will meet Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen and Parliament on Wednesday morning local time, a senior Taiwanese official told CNN. I think that she's expected to meet again, and as far as any moves that China might make, I don't think it might be now. I think it's slowly, like gradually, tensions are gonna arise, and China is gonna start conducting special military operations in Taiwan. I don't think it's gonna be now, and I don't think Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan was the main reason of why China is retaliating against this. obviously her visit is like considered a huge impact towards U.S.-China relations, which are already in like warm water. So I think we'll just have to wait to see what's going to happen, because there are they are targeted military operations going on. There's economic and I forgot what economic and military pressure being put on Taiwan, and we have to see, because this might spiral into an absolute disaster for Taiwan. We just have to wait and see. So yeah, article is by CNN World. It'll be down in the description. So our second story is also related to this, and this is more about the military and economic pressure that China is gonna put on Taiwan as Nancy Pelosi begins her visit. So yeah, this article is by CNN Business. No, wait, CNBC. I don't know why I said CNN Business, but okay, whatever. So yeah, China ratchets up. China increases military and economic pressure on Taiwan as Nancy Pelosi begins her visit. So yeah, this article is by CNBC. It'll be down in the description for you to read or share. So House Speaker Nancy Pelosi landed in Taiwan's capital of Taipei on Tuesday night for a controversial visit that has infuriated Beijing and strained the already tense U.S.-China relationship. Is my camera? Is that better? I gotta constantly correct for that, because I need to buy a better stand. That didn't correct for it. What the hell? Oh, I think I just put it the wrong way. Now it's a bit too... Is that correct now? Come on, update faster. There is a 10-second delay, which I don't really know how to reduce, but I think 10 seconds is already a little bit less than around 30 seconds. It'll be average for YouTube. But anyway, yeah, that's definitely more straighter, I think. All right. After warning Nancy for weeks not to come to the disputed territory, China responded Tuesday by announcing new import bans on certain Taiwanese goods. The Chinese military has also flexed its muscle with recent live fire exercises just 80 miles from Taiwan, and the deployment Tuesday of fighter jet to the Taiwan Strait. So House Speaker Nancy Pelosi landed in Taiwan. We've already read that, so we're just gonna fast forward here. These warnings escalated into action during the hours ahead of Pelosi's arrival, which marked the first time in 25 years that an American House Speaker has visited Taiwan. So yeah, it's been two and a half decades since any American House Speaker has visited Taiwan, and the visit will reportedly last almost 24 hours. So yeah, Hua Xingping, China's Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs, said in a string of tweets on Tuesday that Pelosi's visit to Taiwan was a major political provocation. So Hua Chunying tweeted, since Speaker Nancy Pelosi is the incumbent leader of the U.S. Congress, her visit to and activities in Taiwan, in whatever form and for whatever reason, is a major political provocation to upgrade U.S. official exchanges with Taiwan. On Tuesday, China reportedly levied new import bans on more than 100 Taiwanese products, an apparent effort to impose a quick economic cost on Taipei for its role in Pelosi's high-profile visit. The Chinese military also flexed its muscle by holding live-fire exercises all day, all day on Saturday, just 80 miles from Taiwan. On Tuesday, as Pelosi's visit drew near, the People's Liberation Army deployed fighter jets to the Taiwan Strait that flew very close to the central line of the strait, which is rarely crossed. As Nancy landed on Tuesday night, the Chinese state-affiliated media announced that more live fire exercises would be conducted over the coming weekend, notably after Nancy has left the area. For China experts, these military drills and bellicose public statements come little as surprise. This is just something they have to do, said Andrew Murtha, director of the China Global Research Center at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. He said, I would frankly be very surprised if Beijing does anything physically threatening in any meaningful way. I mean, it's not out of the question, but I would be really surprised. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily out of the question to, not assume that Beijing is not going to do something in retaliation. But I would highly doubt that it would be just because of Nancy Pelosi's visit. I think this is like technically overdue because tensions have always been between Taiwan and China, but this might be just like the final straw that caused all of this. But yeah, what is likely to happen in some sort of subsequent action to demonstrate that China can do something if it wants to, said Murtha, and that will be something as much for the domestic audience within China as for the international one. Later this year, Chinese leader Xi Jinping is expected to begin an unprecedented third term as leader of the Chinese Communist Party. Xi's need to consolidate public support and power within his party are the lens through which we should be looking at China's geopolitical actions, diplomats and experts say. And this is exactly what makes Nancy Pelosi's visit so provocative. After weeks of Pelosi's refusing to confirm or deny or discuss a Taiwan visit, the Washington Post published a scathing op-ed by Pelosi as she just landed on Tuesday. Taiwan, she wrote, is under threat from Beijing, which she painted as an existential danger to free people everywhere. We take this trip at a time where the world faces a choice between autocracy and democracy. She said we cannot stand by as the CCP proceeds to threaten Taiwan and democracy itself. Our congressional delegation's visit should be seen as unequivocal statement in that America stands with Taiwan, our democratic partner, as it defends itself and its freedom. But while Pelosi's op-ed was aimed squarely at Xi, this is not the same energy that President Joe Biden, her fellow Democrat, has chosen to pursue. Biden's approach to China is the one that seeks to maintain a stable, predictable relationship with America's biggest trading partner, while also acknowledging that the Washington and Beijing are strategic adversaries. Officially, the Biden administrator was careful in recent weeks to avoid directly saying whether the president agreed with Pelosi's decision to visit Taiwan, but unofficially, the White House and the Pentagon made a little secret of their opposition to it. And that is the end of the article. Can you say that anything major is going to happen to this? Well, yes, sometime in the future. This is going to be overdue because these two countries have had, like you can say beef for a long time. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of all the things that are going on and all these tensions between these two countries. Would I say that this visit is the main cause? Obviously not. It's just the last cause that caused a lot of tension between these two countries. And it's pretty surprising to see, for the first time in 25 years that an American House Speaker has visited Taiwan. And since this lasted almost 24 hours, she's already left to, I think, Singapore or somewhere in Indonesia/Malaysia. So yeah, that's it. Article by CNBC. It'll be down in the description down below for you to check out and share. So moving on from that topic, we're gonna be talking about why gas prices are falling. So gas prices hit a all-time high, nearing $5 to $6 across the United States, and slowly increasing around the world in notable countries surrounding the EU and most not majorly in East Asia like India and China. But yeah, here's why gas prices are sinking. Our reports say this article is by CNN Business. It'll be in the description down below. So yeah, prices at the pump continue to sink, providing a relief to inflation-weary consumers and an economy mired in a slowdown. The national average for a regular gallon of gasoline dropped 3 cents to $4.16 a gallon on Wednesday, according to AAA. That marks the 50th consecutive day of falling prices. Gas prices have tumbled by 86 cents, hitting a record average high of $5.02 on June 14th. Over the past month alone, the national average is down by 65 cents. 19 states have gas prices below $4, including Ohio, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Wisconsin, according to AAA. The steady decline in gas prices has been driven by multiple factors, including recession fears that have knocked down oil prices, and the fact that some Americans cut back on driving when gas prices spiked above $5 a gallon. When people pay and they see $100 for the bill, they panic and become apologetic, said Tom Closer, global head of the energy analysis at the Oil Price Information Service. Closer also credited the unprecedented release of emergency oil by the Biden administration from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Although he conceded it's difficult to quantify the impact. No matter the excuse, falling prices at the pump gave a boost to consumers grappling with the high prices on food, rent, and everyday items. Although the average price is likely $4.16 a gallon, Closer noted figure is lifted by high prices in places like California. The median print, or on the other hand, is $3.99 according to OPIS. Some analysts argue prices will continue to dip, especially as summer driving season winds down. And I also think that prices will go back to what it was because summer is over. It is now August, which is the last month of summer in the United States, and after September school starts and people are not gonna be traveling as much, especially in the month of September. So yeah, this streak has more to run, said Closer. Andy Lipmau, president of consulting firm Lip Oil Associates, expects the national average to drop to $4.10 a gallon in the next 7 to 10 days and $4 by Labor Day. Yes, I also think based on all the current market and just looking at all of the graphs, I think it is going to not stagnate. It's going to level off around $4 to $4.15 across all the United States, and we'll just have to see how any sense of inflation or any high prices might arise in the coming weeks. So yeah, article by CNN Business, it'll be down in the description. And yeah, let's quickly move down into the business category of the stories. So yeah, we have a big one. Twitter sends Elon Musk a subpoena, which is basically a letter asking for the offensive to show up at court for him to buy for him to like go with the deal that buying Twitter as I think $54.20 was what he agreed to buy each share. The trial is going to be starting on October 17th at some Delaware court, and it's going to be lasting for 5 days. And people are already freaking out about like who's going to win. In my opinion, I've been keeping up with the story. I really do think that Twitter, why Elon Musk was, not pushing with this deal. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I'm gonna just tell. So the subpoenas, which are the letters to sent to people asking them to show up at court. The subpoenas are part of Twitter's lawsuit against Elon Musk, threatening to hold him to the $54 per 20-cent share price that he had agreed to. A 5-day trial is scheduled to begin in October 17th in the Delaware Chancery Court. Let me just zoom out a little bit. Alright, Twitter Inc. is attempting to find evidence that Elon Musk tried to torpedo the financing of his $44 billion takeover deal for the social media company, while also looking at his motivation for backing out of the deal, legal experts say. Twitter sent dozens of civil subpoenas this week to global banks, such as the units of Morgan Stanley, co-investors in the deal, including an affiliate of Brookfield Asset Management Incorporated, and Musk's advisors, according to filings over the past 2 days in the Delaware Court of Chancery. Morgan Stanley declined to comment. Brookfield did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Representatives for Elon Musk and Twitter could not be reached. The subpoenas seek documents and communications concerning the deal, its financing, or any information on bot or fake Twitter accounts. They also seek information that the receipts may have about potential impact on the deal from changes in the stock price of Tesla, which Musk is chief executive of. The subpoenas are part of Twitter's lawsuits against Elon, seeking to hold him to the deal at $54.20 per share, price he had agreed to. A 5-day trial is scheduled to begin on October 17 in the Delaware Chancery Court. Experts say that the subpoenas indicate Twitter wants to know what lenders, investors, and advisors were saying to each other about Elon's behavior after he signed the deal in late April. They suspect that behind the scenes he's been conspiring to blow the whole thing up, said Minor Myers, a professor at UConn School of Law. Elon said on July 8th he was backing out of the deal because Twitter allegedly breached the agreement by withholding data about fake accounts on the platform. Twitter has said that fake accounts are a distraction from the only issue that matters, which is the terms of the agreement. Elon also said that he was walking away because Twitter fired high-ranking executives and one-third of the talent acquisition team, breaching Twitter's obligation to preserve substantially intact the material components of its current business organization. Elon cannot be ordered to close the deal if the financing fails, provided he is not the cause of the failed funding, according to the legal experts. Twitter subpoenas focused on what they said was the firing of Bob Swan, an operating partner at a venture capital firm, and Andreessen Horowitz, who initially led Elon's efforts to finalize deal finance. He was replaced by Antonio Gracias, a longtime Elon associate, according to Twitter's lawsuit. Brian Quinn, a professor at Boston College Law School, said Twitter seems to want to know if Gracias had any role in getting financing done or if he was just supposed to slow things down. Swan did not immediately respond to messages sent by LinkedIn, and according to Andreessen Horowitz, Gracias did not respond to a request for comments sent to his Valor Equity Partners firm. Experts said Twitter will be interested in understanding the lenders' concern about the number of fake accounts on the platform and whether it was an issue for them, as Musk has suggested. Investors were asked for communications of the Twitter deal, and with those close to Musk, such as Steve Jurvetson, a former Tesla board member and current director of SpaceX, the private company founded and led by Elon. Jurvetson did not immediately respond to a request for comment sent to his Futures Ventures firm. So he tweeted, I think he wrote, "Lol, lawyers with Twitter are sending subpoenas to friends in ecosystems around Elon Musk," wrote John Lonsdale, co-founder of Palantir Technologies Incorporated, on Twitter. "I have nothing to do with this aside from a few snarky comments, but got a 'you are hereby commanded' document notice," he wrote. He calls Twitter subpoenas a giant harassing fishing expedition. Lonsdale did not immediately respond to a request for comments sent to his ABC firm. Theodore Kitila, a Delaware corporate litigator, said Twitter is trying to determine what Elon was saying privately while publicly sending tweets that he was concerned about bots and fake accounts on Twitter. So Elon was tweeting about how there were so many fake bots and fake accounts on Twitter that were spamming, and he argued that there is no way that it's just 5% of Twitter's daily audience, which I also believe. There is no way that Twitter bots and fake accounts are just a small part of Twitter's user base. That I hardly believe that. But anyway, they are trying to climb in there behind the tweets. It said Kitila, they're looking at emails and trying to divine the conversation that actually occurred and what drove his decision to suspend the deal. His decision to suspend the deal was because of Twitter not disclosing, proper information about how many bots and fake accounts were on Twitter, which I do believe is the main reason why he dropped this deal. Obviously, it could be a lot of different things, but I think this is the main deal, which actually does make sense in case of buying such a big company. Is you would want to know the most important part or asset of that company, which is the user base, because Twitter is a social media company and its user base is its most profitable and valuable asset. And knowing information about that, knowing how much of it is quote unquote monetizable and revenue generating, is also very important. So yeah, anyway, Elon said his own subpoenas over the past 2 days to Concentric Solutions Corporate, data analytics firm, and TaskUs USA, which moderate constant. Elon's subpoena questions were filed under the seal. Except for the headline, the story has not been okay. Anyway, there's that, a huge mess. I think like how we have to wait and see till October 14th on how this entire thing is gonna go down. But I would say that Elon is in a great position to win. And I'm not just talking out of my ass right here. Or I think in terms of how this court stuff is gonna play out, I think Twitter will have to disclose the information not only to Elon but to the public as well. As technically it's a public company and Elon is buying it, and since he's buying the shares, he's also taking it down to taking it private. That's what I meant to talk. So yeah. Anyway, there's that article by NDTV. It'll be in the description down below. And on to our next topic of the day. Tech companies have fired over 32,000 employees in the Silicon Valley in July and are entering a period of hiring freeze, which is they're going to stop hiring for this is basically after the summer. So yeah, this is all due to the inflation that was going on and the Russia versus Ukrainian war and its effects. So yeah, this article is by India Today, and it'll be in the description down below for you to read. Whew. Anyway, around 64 notable tech companies in the United States announced job cuts in July, and the total number of layoffs is more than 32,000. In the last 3 months, several companies have announced job cuts in a bid to control costs as there are growing fear of recession storm that may hit soon because of the Ukrainian invasion and high inflation. As of July 2022, over 32,000 employees in the Silicon Valley have been fired, according to a detailed report published by Crunchbase. Big tech companies such as Netflix, Shopify, Coinbase, and others have laid off hundreds of workers. We actually did cover our Netflix and Coinbase in previous episodes. So if you want to check them out, they will also be on the channel. We have been hearing about mass layoffs almost every week. Shut up. We have been hearing about mass layoffs every week, which suggests that no job is currently as steady, and 2022 is turning out to be another worse year for many people as they are losing jobs for no apparent reason. While some tech companies have already started freezing the hiring process, many are straight away some amount out of their workforce to weather the economic uncertainty. Around 64 notable tech companies in the United States announced job cuts in July, and the total number of layoffs is more than 32,000. Shopify, which is a popular e-commerce platform, fired over 1,000 employees last month, according to the data accumulated by Crunchbase. The job cuts have been made in recruiting, support, and the sales department. The company's CEO Toby Lutke asserted the platform is cutting down on over-specialized and duplicate roles. This seems to be a cost-saving measure, as he says that the company has hired more employees in recent times to meet the expected growth, out with the thought that the e-commerce industry will continue to grow beyond the coronavirus pandemic. Twitter also fired 30% of its talent acquisition team, according to a report from Wall Street Journal. The cited source says that Twitter was facing increasing business pressures and that it is restructuring its talent acquisition team due to revised business needs. Microsoft also reduced 1% of its 180,000 workforce as it plans to make some structural adjustments and meet business needs. A recent report from Wired claims that TikTok has started laying off employees in the name of the company while restructuring, and it plans to fire less than 100 employees. Other startups like Swoop, a fitness wearable company, laid off 15% of its staff. Vimeo, a video sharing platform that is owned by Microsoft, reportedly removed 72 employees. The list of 10 companies that fired many of their employees is very long, and it even includes Outbrain, Niantic, Gemini, and more. In just 2 months, Netflix laid off a total of 450 employees and many contractors after the company saw a dip in subscriber growth and revenue. We actually did cover this in previous episodes, so if you want to check them out, go and check out the previous episodes on the channel. So yeah, the company explained that the layoffs have been done to control expenses to make sure that the costs are in line with their slower revenue growth. The cryptocurrency industry has also been affected, and in popular places like Coinbase have fired over 1,100 employees, which is basically 18% of its workforce. The company's CEO Brian Armstrong first blamed economic conditions for the layoff, and then also stated that Coinbase overhired because crypto was getting good traction on a weekly basis. Meanwhile, other popular tech companies such as Spotify, Apple, Meta, which was Facebook, and Google have also announced their plan of either freezing or slowing down the hiring process, while a few have just cut the set target for this year and clarified they will continue to hire. So yeah, a lot of the different stuff, and my thoughts are basically, I think this was just the summer hiring process where they were trying to secure as many roles and people as possible, so that after summer, or they'll have a lot more people, especially just graduate students who are securing a job directly at one of these companies. So yeah, there's that article by India Today. It'll be in the description down below. And moving on to our another topic, which is also pretty big. Uber made $8.1 billion this last quarter, and they still somehow managed to lose money. So I actually didn't keep up on the story as much as I should have. So I really don't have any kind of context that uh, I don't really have any context that I can provide, so we'll just jump into it. This article is by Jalopnik, and it'll be in the description down below once again. Uber made $8.1 billion in this last quarter and still lost money. Uber posted a net loss of $2.6 billion for the same quarter. That is bad for a company like Uber. So Uber made a whole lot of money last quarter, but somehow it still managed not to turn a profit. The company reports its Q2 results were bolstered by high demand from rideshare customers and folks who ordered takeout. These results doubled to $8.1 billion in revenue. I think people who order takeout, are referring to restaurant home delivery. Food delivery services, and that cut down a lot of people who might take an Uber and go to a restaurant. I think that's what they're mentioning here. So, who said this? So the CEO Dara Khosrow, Dara Khosrow Shahi. He said in a statement, last quarter I challenged our team to meet our profitability commitments even faster than I had planned, and they delivered. Importantly, they delivered balanced growth. In the 3-month period ending on June 30th, Uber reported gross bookings that included ride-hailing, food delivery, and freight rose 33% to an all-time high of $29.1 billion. However, Uber still posted a net loss of $2.6 billion in the same period, and $1.7 billion of those losses came from losses in its equity investments. If you compare that loss number to the same time last year, it's a bit grim, netting a total loss of $1.1 billion in Q2 of 2021. There is at least one positive moving stat. Uber reports ridership is up, with 122 million people using the service, originally forecasted at 120.5 million. This marks a new phase for Uber, self-funding future growth and with disciplined capital allocation while maximizing long-term returns for shareholders, said Nelson Chai, Uber's chief finance officer. So look into the next quarter. Uber is anticipating general gross bookings between 29 and $30 billion, but who's to say if they'll make a profit with it? Even Uber knows how to make money. It also really knows how to spend it. Even if you take away from the losses the ride-sharing company sustained from equity investments, Uber still lost $900 million. That's a lot of scroll, if you know what I mean. So yeah, there is that. Obviously, there are a lot of different factors that are affecting this, and I don't think that it's mainly just due to rideshare customers who are ordering from takeout, because obviously Uber has a food delivery service, Uber Eats, and yeah, that's not I don't think it's mainly due to that. I feel like they kind of like over expected from themselves as we are just leaving a pandemic, so more people will start traveling, and therefore more people will start using Uber services. So yeah, there's that article by Jalopnik. It'll be in the description down below. And let's move on to another topic, which is Amazon's climate pollution is getting way worse. So Amazon had this great deal of like having zero carbon emissions by 2040, and if you it's 2022, so they have a long way to go. And if they're in this state, like 18 years before what they're saying, then I don't think things are gonna get much better. But anyway, Amazon's climate pollution is getting way worse. This article is by The Verge. It'll be on the description down below. So yeah, Amazon's greenhouse gases emissions ballooned big time this year despite the company's efforts to sell itself as a leader in the climate action. Its carbon dioxide emissions grew an eye-popping 18% in 2021 compared to 2020, according to its latest sustainability report. Amazon generated 71.54 million metric tons of carbon dioxide of equivalent last year, about as much pollution as 180 gas-fired power plants might pump out annually. This is the second year in a row that Amazon's climate pollution has grown by double digits since it made a splashy climate pledge and started reporting its emissions publicly in 2019. Comparing that year to 2021, the company's CO2 pollution has actually grown a whopping 40%. Back in 2019, the then CEO Jeff Bezos announced that the company planned to reach net zero carbon dioxide emissions for its operations by 2040. Unfortunately, that kind of pledge allows companies to get away with some misleading carbon accounting. They can aim to reach net zero emissions or claim to be carbon neutral by purchasing carbon offsets that are supposed to cancel out the impacts of their emissions through supposedly eco-friendly projects. That usually involves planting trees, protecting forests, or promoting clean energy. Those offsets, however, typically don't result in real-world reductions in the planned heating CO2 building up in our atmosphere. Amazon co-founded an initiative called the Climate Pledge in 2019 to recruit other businesses to make similar commitments to reduce CO2 and neutralize leftover emissions with credible offsets. But a meaningful impact on the climate only comes after from a company getting rid of the vast majority of its pollution, if not eliminating all of its emissions. So I forgot to elaborate on this, but yeah, this is true. This is a little bit kind of misleading because you can say, oh well, hey, we are still generating that, but hey, look, we are also planting a lot more trees. We're planting a lot of this. We're taking steps to clean up our environment and reduce carbon emissions, but we're still generating. That can be a little bit of misleading, especially when you're trying to reach carbon neutral. Because if you have, how else do I verify? Show this one. Let me just draw what I'm trying to say. I should start using this more. So, how do I? Okay. So we have, I shouldn't really use that. So we have. This is how much they're making, how many tons of carbon emissions they're letting out in the year. They can say that, hey, we're also producing the same amount of clean energy, and therefore we are carbon neutral. But this is not something that they're supposed to do. This is just highly misleading by being carbon neutral. You know what they should do? They should actually lower it, so that in that way they should actually lower the amount of carbon emissions that they're letting in the atmosphere, and also increase the amount of work that they're doing. So when you can claim that you're carbon neutral, it should be something like this. It should not be up here. So yeah, that was just a bad explanation of what I was trying to say. But anyway, We already read that. Amazon, so yeah, Amazon isn't setting a good example of that despite the company's best PR efforts to take the heat off of its glowing absolute carbon emissions. Amazon points to a more flattering number in its sustainability report. The focus should not be solely on a company's carbon footprint in terms of absolute carbon emissions, but also on whether it's lowering its carbon intensity. That is partly true, but that is also heavily misleading, and you're trying to take the focus away from the real problem here, which is how much emissions you're letting into the atmosphere. So yeah, Amazon says it's reduces carbon intensity by a small figure, 1.9%, meaning the emissions they produce for every dollar of merchandise sold fell off slightly. But this metric can also be misleading because those reductions in carbon intensity can easily be wiped out when the company's business grows. That's exactly what happened at Amazon. As we work to decarbonize our company, Amazon is growing rapidly. We have scaled our business at an unprecedented pace to help meet the needs of our customers through the pandemic, the company says in its sustainability report. In other words, Amazon made a killing during the COVID-19 pandemic as e-commerce surged and Amazon's pollution grew along with its profits. This all just goes to show why it's important to look at a company's entire carbon footprint to see if it's actually reducing emissions overall. To make things worse, the figures Amazon reports are likely an undercount of how much pollution the e-commerce giant is truly responsible because, unlike some other companies, including Target, Amazon doesn't include the emissions that come from making any of the products it sells. That is true. Amazon does not include the emissions that come from making any of the products that they sell. The products are except like Amazon Basic and Amazon Alexa and Kindle, all of that. Most of the products sold on Amazon are sold by third parties. Sometimes, like unpartnered or unregistered third parties. And Amazon doesn't include that. Obviously, they don't have to include it because it doesn't make much sense. Otherwise, it'll not be in millions of metric tons. It'll be in billions, and that's not really something to go off of because Amazon has nothing to do with that. But it is important for context on why you have to look at a company's entire carbon footprint, not only to see how much they're producing, but how dense of how, like, where is all of this coming from? Is it coming from the trucks or the delivery vans? Is it coming from powering of their warehouse and their equipment? Is it coming from the warehouses? Is from sorting machines or in factories, or is it coming from? It can come from many different sources. So yeah, and while keeping track of carbon dioxide emissions is important for tackling the climate crisis that's supercharging devastating heat waves, droughts, wildfires, storms, and other disasters, it doesn't capture the full spectrum of problems associated with Amazon's mushrooming warehouses and all those smiley face diesel trucks making deliveries. For years, many communities where Amazon builds warehouses have called the company out for bringing more smog, soot, and noise into their neighborhoods. This latest report shows that Amazon still has a long way to go to prevent all of the pollution it creates. So yeah, they have a long way to go, and I don't think this is like a I think this is more of a systemic problem due to just how Amazon works and how Amazon delivery works. You cannot just switch all of it to electrical or cleaner power sources because Amazon is just such a big company, and that requires a lot of you can say reconfiguration. I think that is the best word for this. So yeah, article by the words, it'll be in the description down below. And moving on to our next topic after a little break because I'm tired. All right, I'm back. All right, that was a little bit of a longer break. I did, but I okay. All right. Anyway, let's move on to the economy slash finance section of the stories that I want to cover today. Uh, so due to all of the inflation and all of the other stuff that's going on, the stock market received a bit of a hit in July. I mean in June and July, and now it's shown signs of recovery, and we're gonna cover about that. So yeah, article by ABC News, and why the stock market rallied in July and what comes next according to experts. The stock market delivered a plot twist last month that rivals may show on TV. After a near historic decline over the first half of the year, the S&P 500, a popular index to which many 401k accounts are pegged, bounced back in July with the strongest month since November 2020. The other major indices, the tech-heavy Nasdaq and the Dow Industrial Average, reversed their performance too. The sudden shift arrived despite little change in the economy. In keeping with recent months, the government released mixed economic data, and the Federal Reserve escalated a series of borrowing cost increases meant to slow down economic activity slash demand and dial back inflation. The explanation behind the bounce back investment strategies, told ABC News, is the reason why its investors should not expect it to endure expectations. It hardly sounds like the makings of a stock boom, which relies on the investor optimism of the outlook for corporate profits. Over the past half of the year, as the market plummeted and pessimism reigned, not resigned. What the hell? Investors lowered their expectations. The strategist said last month when the Federal Reserve signaled it would someday ratchet down rate increases, and many corporations reported better than anticipated earnings. Investors saw reasons for the turnabout in sentiment. They added the strong returns in July raised expectations. However, the market is set up for underperformance amid persistent economic challenges such as inflation, the Russia versus Ukrainian war, and the pandemic-induced supply chain disruptions, the strategist said. It is not good or bad, said Ryan Detrick, the chief market strategist at Carson Group, told ABC News. It's about better or worse. Expectations were so low, the wick was there, he said. We needed anything to light that fire. Samir Samana, senior global market strategist at Wells Fargo Investment Institute, said that it would prove difficult to keep that fire lit. Unfortunately, along with rising stock prices, you have rising expectations as well. For months, market sentiment has strained under the weight, and the economy beset by a stark imbalance between supply and demand. A surge in demand followed the pandemic-induced flood of economic stimulus that combined with a widespread shift towards goods instead of services. Meanwhile, that stimulus brought about a speedy economic recovery from the March 2020 downturn, triggering a hiring blitz. But the surge in demand for goods and labor far outpaced supply. COVID-related bottlenecks in China and elsewhere slowed delivery times, and the infection fears kept workers on the sidelines. In turn, prices and wages skyrocketed, ultimately prompting sky-high inflation that not only endured for many months but also gotten worse even as economic growth slowed and recession fears grew. Taken together, the nearest historic inflation and sluggish economic activity drove away stock market investors for the first half of the year, said Samana, the senior global market strategist at the Wells Fargo Investment Institute. People, to a certain extent, have been throwing in the towel on the equities. They were worried about the Fed, worried about China, worried about commodity prices, worried about a recession. He said there was no shortage of worries. What often happens is when you get that level of concern, and is that everybody is on one side of the boat. Then what happens is when you get a piece of data that isn't as bad as feared, and people shift to the other side, it causes a hard mentality. This is true, actually. So yeah, market strategists largely attributed the July turnaround to the Federal Reserve signaling it would raise its benchmark interest rate at 0.75%, which it ultimately did on Wednesday. A significant hike, but yes, and 1% increase that some observers had originally feared. Plus, investors seed on comments made by Fed Chair Jerome Powell on Wednesday that the pace of rate of hikes would eventually slow. People think the Fed will have to change its mindset sooner than lower, said Mike o- O'Rourke, chief market strategist at Jones Trading, told ABC News. Over the past 6 months of the year, the S&P 500 plummeted 20.6%, marking its worst first half performance of any year since 1970. But the index added back 9.1% last month alone. This blistering pace from July isn't sustainable, the strategist said. Further, investors should expect volatile highs and lows for the remaining of the year, they added. Uh, O'Rourke of Jones Trading said investors should expect a volatile market for the next 6 to 12 months. Investor strategists echoed that view, including Detrick, who warned that investors shouldn't treat July as a turning point. That said, he urged them to stay the course. This year hasn't been historically volatile and disappointing for investors. To panic and sell when everything is in the darkest, that's the worst time to do it. Hopefully, this bounce back in July reminds investors of that. But the truth is, we're not off the woods. Yeah, I don't think we're all off the woods, and many factors, not only the Russia-Ukraine war, but stuff like inflation, high prices, and since we're just getting out of this pandemic, and lots of different things are, relating to why this recovery is just so surprising. Because just in last month, the first 6 months for the S&P 500, I scrolled a little bit too high, I think. And yeah, over the first 6 months of the year, the S&P plummeted 20.6%, but just last month alone, it got back 9.1%. So half of what it lost in just a month. So there are signs of recovery here, but I think it's just a very short-lived recovery here, because a lot of things have to go right for the stock market to finally stabilize. Which I think I'll have faith that it might do in the near future, but not in the coming months at least. So yeah, there's that article by ABC News. You can check it out down below and read it and share it. So yeah, that's it for the business section of today's show, and we're on to the technology part of this live stream, which there are a lot of topics actually. No, actually, no, there are only three topics, but okay, there are only three topics. I was reading the gaming one also with it. So yeah, the TSMC chairman, which is TSMC is a chip provider for both Apple and Qualcomm. They make the chips that go in the devices that we use. So yeah, the chairman, TSMC is based in Taiwan. So yeah, he states that the factories which manufacture these chips, the fabrication labs, would not be operable if China invades Taiwan. Which at this point, I don't think there might be a much chance of China, like invading Taiwan. But it is not out of the question. I don't want to take away from that. So yeah, this article is by Extreme Tech, and it'll be in the description down below as well. So TSMC chairman fabs would be inoperable if China not operable if China invades. Tensions are running high as the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, touched on in Taiwan today. We've all covered that. So yeah, the Chinese government has seen it as an unnecessary escalation by the West. That's despite National Security Council spokesman John Kirby stating on Monday that the U.S. does not support Taiwan's excuse me, that the U.S. does not support Taiwan's independence. Oh no, did I click on a fucking tweet? Where was I? It is with escalation in mind that CNN's Fareed Zakaria sat down with TSMC East Chairman Mark Leo for a rare interview. The big question, of course, was what would happen to TSMC if China invaded. It's a scenario that has been envisioned for years, but now for the first time seems like a real possibility. In the interview, Liu was defiant when asked about a theoretical invasion. Nobody could control TSMC by force, he stated. He added that if the military tried to take over TSMC's factories, they would become not operable. This is due to the inherent sophistication of the manufacturing process. Liu said it depends on real-time connections with global supply chains in the US, Europe, and Japan. These connections are what keep the fab running with materials, chemicals, diagnostic software, and more. China also depends on TSMC as well, which he said 10% of its businesses. He noted that TSMC only works with China's consumer market, not its military. CNN said China buys 90% of its silicon from other countries. I swear I've seen this building before. I don't know, but anyway, it's photo by TSMC, so I've probably seen it before. So Liu said China's dependency is not a bad thing, indicating he's confident China wouldn't invade solely for selfish reasons. Fears over the disruption of the Taiwanese chip supply and the resulting economic damage would have been termed a silicon shield by analysts. It wouldn't just be a Chinese problem, though. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo warned about it recently as well. She stated that the U.S. would go into a deep and immediate recession if U.S. firms were abruptly cut off from TSMC supply. Apple, AMD, Nvidia, and Intel all depend on TSMC for their most advanced products. It is one of the primary reasons that the CHIPS Act was passed this week. It seeks to bolster U.S. silicon manufacturing in order to reduce our dependence on China and Taiwan. Yeah, all of these companies, Apple, AMD, Nvidia, and Intel, all depend on TSMC for their chips. Apple sells all the 8, I think from the A8 to the 8 today, 15, I think they're in. All of these chips are made by TSMC. Qualcomm, which is not mentioned here for some reason, they also depend on TSMC. Nvidia and AMD, especially them, they depend on TSMC. All of their manufacturing processes are dependent on TSMC. So if TSMC is faces any kind of inoperability, is going to affect a lot, majority of the entire tech world, and we're all going to go into another silicon shortage. So TSMC is in a really bad position now, where if they were to be stopped in some way or form, whether it's via some political interference, is going to be bad for the whole world. Also, back in June, a Chinese economist who worked for the government-funded think tank said a takeover of Taiwan would be necessary if the U.S. and the West imposed sanctions on China as they have against Russia. She also added that TSMC would be seized, according to TechSpot. So, according about that invasion, obviously it is technically overdue, as the tensions have been always been high, and now it's just at an all-time high. But I don't think it would be like now. It's a scenario that that's been envisioned for years. So obviously it's a real possibility, but I don't think it's gonna be now, like this instant, or like in the coming weeks. It's gonna happen at some point in the future, and I think especially the companies like TSMC and all companies based in Taiwan or have any relations to Taiwanese manufacturers have to find either alternatives, or TSMC and all Taiwanese companies have to find some way to continue business, because this is a bad time. Especially we are just moving out of pandemic, we're just moving out of a silicon shortage. We don't need another one. I'm telling you right now. So yeah, also back in we just read that as of press time, Speaker Nancy Pelosi we also just read that nothing has changed. Nothing has changed about our Taiwanese policy. Kirby has said. So yeah, there is that. It's like really gonna be bad if TSMC is gonna be in an inoperable state, because that's just gonna ruin the whole world. So yeah, there's that article by Extreme Tech. It'll be in the description down below for you to check out. And we're on to our second story in the technology section. Intel ends their Optane series, like completely stops it, which is honestly really surprising to me. So Intel Optane, for you guys that don't know, is it started out as a kind of like small SSD that that acts like a cache for your hard drive. So hard drives, we know, are generally slow, and SSDs are just faster. This an Optane drive is basically an accelerator for a hard drive. It'll basically, load all the programs that it thinks that you might use often, so that load times are not that bad. It also works as a cache, so that when you copy files to it, it gets copied to that SSD first, and then slowly, let at the hard drive, so that it doesn't seem as slow as that. This technology has been used in years for the server and in like the server industry, but now it's finally come to the consumer industry. And now Optane, it's not just that anymore. It's like it's become full like PCIe SSDs and a lot more stuff right now. And Intel has decided to completely kill off the line, which is honestly really surprising to me. Also, I haven't covered any Intel Arc things. I'm still getting my head around that, and I'm planning to make a video about that on the Aero Tech channel. So if you want to watch it, go and subscribe to the Aero Tech channel. It'll be in the description down below. So yeah, why the end of Optane is bad news for all IT. What do you mean for all information? Okay, for all IT related stuff. So this article is by Registered. It'll be in the description down below for you to read or share. So Intel is ending its Optane product lines of persistent memory that is more disastrous for the industry that is visible on the surface. The influence of ideas from the late 1960s and early 1970s is now so pervasive that almost nobody can imagine anything else, and the best ideas from the following generation are mostly forgotten. Optane presented a radical transformative technology, but because of this legacy view, this technical depth, few in the industry realized just how radical Optane was, and so it bombed. To get to the best of this, let's step back for a long moment and ask, what is the primary function of a computer file? Why are we going back? Okay, it'll be interesting to go back a little bit. So yeah, the first computer did not have file systems. The giant machines of the 1940s and 1950s, built from tens of thousands of thermionic values, only had a few words of memory. At first, programs were entered physically by wiring them into the computer by hand. 1 second. Only the data was in memory. The program ran and printed out some results. As capacities grew and we arrived at the von Neumann architecture, in which the computer program is stored alongside the data in the same memory. In some early machines, that memory was magnetic storage, a spinning drum. To get it into the memory, it was read off paper, punch cards, or paper tape, where computer memories got big enough to store several programs at once. Operating systems appeared, programs that managed other programs. Still no file systems though. There was RAM and there was I/O, printers, terminals, card readers, and so on. But all storage directly accessible to the computer was memory. In the 1960s, memory often meant magnetic core storage, which had one great advantage that's sometimes forgotten now. When you turn the computer back off, whatever's in the core stayed there. Turn the computer back on, and the last program was still there. Around this time, the first hard disk drives started to appear, expensive and relatively slow, but huge compared to working memory. The early operating systems were given another job, the problem of managing the vast secondary storage, indexing its contents, finding those sections that were wanted, and loading them into the working memory. Two levels of storage. Once operating systems started managing hard disk drives, a distinction appeared: primary and secondary storage, both directly accessible to the computer, not loaded and unloaded by a human operator like reels of paper tape or decks of punch cards. Primary storage appears right in the processor memory map, and every individual word is often directly readable or writable. Secondary storage is a bigger, much slower pool that the processor can't directly see and can only access by requesting or sending whole blocks to another device, a disk controller, which fetches the contents of the specified blocks from a big pool of storage or places them into that pool. This split continued down into the 8-bit microcomputers of the 1970s and 1980s. The author fondly remembers attaching a ZX microdrive to his 48K ZX Spectrum. I have no idea about that, what the hell that is. But anyway, suddenly my Spectrum has secondary storage. The Spectrum's Z80 CPU has 64 kilobytes of memory mapping, of which a quarter was ROM. Each microdrive cartridge, even though it was just 100 kilobytes or so, could store up to twice the machine's entire usable memory. So there had to be a level of indirection. It was impossible to load the whole cartridge contents into memory. It wouldn't fit, so cartridges had an index and then named blocks containing basic code or machine code or screen images or data files. Since microcomputers, we call the primary storage RAM, and we still call all the secondary storage disks or drives. Even though in many modern end-user computers, it's all just different types of electronics with no moving parts or separate media. You can start the computer by loading an OS from disk into RAM, and then when you want to use a program, the OS loads it from disk into RAM, and then that program can run. That program probably loads some data from disk into RAM. Even if it's a Chromebook and if it doesn't have any other local apps, its single app loads data from another computer or the internet, which loads it from disk or into RAM and sends it to the laptop. Since Unix was developed, first written in 1969, this has become a mantra. Everything is a file. Unix-like OSs use the file system for all kinds of things that aren't files. Access to the machine is governed by the metadata on files. I/O devices are accessed as if they were files. You can play sounds by copying them to the sound device and so on. Since Unix V8 in 1984, there's even a fake file system called /proc, which displays information about the memory and processors of the running system by generating pretend files that users and programs can read, and in some cases write. Files are a powerful metaphor of sorts, which have proved versatile to a degree unimaginable in 1969, where Unix was written on a mini computer with a maximum of 64K words of memory and no sound, graphics, or networking. Files are ubiquitous now. But files and file systems were only a crutch. The concept of the computer file was invented because primary storage was too small and secondary storage was too expensive, too big, and too slow. The only way to attach millions of words to a storage or to a 1960s mainframe was a disk drive the size of a filing cabinet and too much storage to fit into the computer's memory map. So instead, mainframe companies designed disk controllers and built a form of database into the OS. Imagine, for instance, a payroll program, maybe only a few thousand words in size, that could handle a file for tens of thousands of employees by doing it in tiny chunks. Read a row from the personal file and a row from the salaries file, compute a result, and write a row to the paycheck file, then repeat. The OS checks the indexes and converts these instructions to the disk controller. Here, fetch block 37, 52, head 12, sector 34, and block 57 from track 4, head 7, sector 65. Now write 74, and 32 into this block. SSDs appeared in the 1990s, and by the first decade of the century, they were getting affordable. SSDs replaced magnetic storage with electronic storage, but it's still secondary storage. SSDs pretend to be disk drives. The computer talks to a disk controller and sends and receives sectors, and the drive converts them and shuffles around blocks of storage which can only be erased in chunks, typically of a megabyte or more, to emulate hard disk style functionality that writes 512 byte sectors. The trouble is, flash memory has to be accessed this way. It is too slow to be mapped directly into the computer's memory and is impossible to rewrite flash byte by byte. In order to modify a byte in a block of flash, the rest of the contents of the whole block must be copied elsewhere, and then a whole block wiped. That's not how computers' memory controllers work. The future was here, but it's gone. Optin made it possible to eliminate that. Like Core Store is working in memory, primary storage. OptinKit is as big as cheap as disk drives. It's shipped in the hundreds of gigabyte size range, the same sort of size of a modest SSD. It could be fitted directly into the motherboard's DIMM slots, which is the M.2 slots, I think what they're trying to say here. Although some Optins could be in the PCIe slot, but whatever. Every byte appear right there in the processor's memory map, and every byte could be rewritten directly. No shuffling around blocks to erase them like Flash, and it supports millions of write cycles rather than tens of thousands. Whew, this article is really long. 1 second, I dropped my... Alright, so, where were we? Many hundreds of gigabytes, even terabytes of dynamic non-volatile storage, thousands of times faster and thousands of times more robust than flash memory. Non-secondary storage was on the other side of a disk controller, but right there in the memory map. Not infinitely reliable, no. So your computer needs RAM as well for holding variables and fast changing data. But instead of loading programs from disk into RAM every time you want to use them, a program loads once and then it's there in the memory forever. No matter if there is a power cut, no matter if you turn on your computer off for a week's holiday, turn it back on and all your apps are right there in memory. No more installing OSs, no more booting up, no more apps. The OS sits in memory all the time, and so do your apps. And if you have a terabyte or two of non-volatile memory in your computer, what do you need SSDs for? It's all just memory. One small section is fast and infinitely rewritable, but its contents disappears when the power goes. The other 95% holds its contents forever. Sure, if the box is a server, you can have some spinning disks so that you can manage petabytes of data. Data centers need that, but very few personal computers do. Linux, of course, supported this. The Particle Vulture wrote the documentation for how to use it on a prominent enterprise distro. But Linux being Linux, everything must be a file, so it's supported by partitioning it and formatting it with the file system, using primary storage to emulate secondary storage in software. No current mainstream OS understands the concepts of a computer that only has primary storage, no secondary storage at all, but it's split between a small volatile section and a large non-volatile section. It's hard to even describe it to people familiar with how current computers work. I have tried. How do you find a program to run if there are no directories? How do you have stuff if there is nowhere to save it to? How do you compile code when there's no way to hashtag include one file into another because there are no files? And where does the resulting binary go? There are 13 ideas for how to do this. The Reg wrote about them 13 years ago. There's also Twizzler, a research project investigating how to make it look enough like a Unix system for existing software to use it. When a lab boffin at HP invented the memristor, HP got very excited and came up with some big plans. But it takes a long time for a new technology to bring a new technology to the mass market, and eventually HP gave up. But Intel made it work, produced this stuff, and put it on the market, and not odd enough people were interested, and now it is giving up too. The future was here, but when viewed through the bloody scratched old lenses of the 1960s mini computer OS design, well, if everything is a file, then Optane was just sort of a really fast disk drive, right? No, it wasn't. It was the biggest step forward since the mini computer, but we blew it. Goodbye, Optane. We hardly knew you. Jeez, that was a really long article. Why did I read that? Oh dear God, why do I put myself through this? Okay. Anyway, jeez, that was a long one. Holy shit. I'm in physical pain. I'm kidding. I'm fine. I just need more water. 1 second, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Okay. All right. Anyway, let's move on to our last topic in the technology section of today's stories. The OnePlus 10T, the like kind of successor to the OnePlus 10 Pro and the OnePlus 10 series, finally launched. And here is a review of it. Let me just. Why is my audio duplicated? What the hell? Okay, I don't know what the hell that was, but anyway, the OnePlus 10T review called it a comeback, a speedy premium mid-ranger. This article is by The Verge, it'll be in the description down below. Technically, OnePlus didn't go anywhere, especially in the Europe and India. It has been very much present over the past few years, putting out mid-range devices that perform better than their price points indicate. But in the US, it feels like the company hasn't quite had the same profile in the recent years. That's changing with the OnePlus 10T, a 649 US dollar phone delivering that's focused on delivering high performance. It is a well-defined niche, and the phone follows through on its promises. Isn't everything for everyone, and that makes it good. If there's one standout on the 10T spec sheet to know about, it's the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 processor. Oh, it's a Plus variant. Alright, finally. It is a highly capable chipset, the very best you can find in an Android phone in 2022, and the 10T has it for less than $700 US. That tells you a lot about what this phone's whole deal is. There's also very fast wired charging on board, 125 watts in the US, and it only stops there because our power outlets aren't designed to handle higher voltages. What do you mean? Oh, it might be some joke. Okay, anyway, what's missing from the 10TC is equally telling. There's no wireless charging, which is kind of stupid. Like, what? Why is there no wireless charging on a flagship in 2022? But anyway, and there's no Hasselblad branding on the camera system. So OnePlus, especially for the OnePlus 9, collabed with Hasselblad, which is like a camera company, and it had for their cameras, for the smartphone cameras, and they put the Hasselblad branding all over the phone, not only in the camera app but on the camera lenses, not camera lens, on the camera bump itself. So yeah, there's a big, fast refresh rate OLED screen that anyone can appreciate, but for added necessities like wireless charging, you have to look elsewhere. The 10T is a phone for people who care about getting the best performance they can without spending $1,000 US. If that's you, then you will be very happy to hear that OnePlus is indeed back. The company that's top shelf Qualcomm processor. The base model OnePlus 10T includes 8 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, with no micro SD card slot for expansion. There is also 16 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage available for $750, both of which will be sold in North America. These are extremely competitive specs, especially for the price, where 6 gigabytes of RAM is more than the common starting points. I tested the 16 gigabyte variant. It handles intensive tasks like $1,000 phone would. I can tap and scroll seamlessly to virtual 3D home tours on Zillow's mobile sites. Who among us doesn't Windows shop for a new house for funsies? I played like Diablo Immortal for 30 minutes without encountering any major problems, except for like an angry fighter being a monster that I had to 7 slide. Okay, this just goes on. With Genshin Impact, gameplay is smooth and drop frames are rare. It is one of the 2 games that OnePlus said is optimized as the 10T for with a frame rate stabilizing technology. The other is PUBG Mobile, and it seems to work very well. The 10T's fast wireless charging does everything it promises to. The phone ships with the charging brick and USB-C to USB-C cable, and the adapter is heavy enough to let you know it means business when you pick it up. Charging speeds are nothing short of impressive. If blink and you miss the phone, charging up to 30% in under 5 minutes. Within 10 minutes, I saw a 60% charge and a full charge within 20 minutes. That sort of speed gate can kind of change how you think about a phone's battery life. If you don't mind carrying the charger, then you can easily add several more hours of use with just a few minutes at a power outlet. You don't have to be precious of how much time you spend gaming or streaming video, even if you spend most of your day away from a power source. Beyond that, battery life is good. The 4800 milliamp hour cell constantly lasted through a day of moderate use, with about 60% charge left in the tank. I tested it largely on serial data with high performance mode enabled, and why wouldn't you with the phone on this? Using the fastest screen refresh mode on by default. On by default, that should be an option, like while you're setting up the phone, like you'll have 60, 90, and then I think this one is 120. That's a day of moderate use if you plan to do a fair amount of gaming, which is a key use case for this device, and you'll need that quick. Late afternoon recharge to avoid single-digit battery hell. The 10T carries an IP54 water resistance rating, no matter when that's well short of the IP68 waterproof ratings on most flagship devices, but it's a little insurance against accidental splashes and better than nothing. One thing you won't find on the 10T, OnePlus signature alerts. Like, wait, what? Why? Okay, that was honestly a really good feature. The alert slider, you can just basically, it was a sliding button on the phone where if you slide it, it'll go into DND, which is do not disturb. They removed that. That is why. So the company's explanation is that in order to give the phone's chipset and heat dissipation system enough space, it had to cut the slider. It's not also going to great lengths to stress that just because this phone doesn't have an alert slider doesn't mean that it's gone forever. Still, it's a fan favorite. It's also a really good favorite of mine, and leaving it out is no doubt an unpopular move among the OnePlus faithful. For what is faithful, I got by just fine without it as used phone. So yeah, here's how it looks. It looks just like the 10 Pro, and usually it'll be up here on the sides, and it's gone. But it does look pretty cool. So yeah, anyway, with the high-powered chipset and fast charging, OnePlus has taken care to include a serious heat dissipation system on the 10T. OnePlus says that it contains the largest vapor chamber in any of its devices to date. There's 3D graphite and copper foil, and the one that I quite don't understand what that means, but I can say this, it works fairly well. The phone heats up for sure 15 minutes into downloading the 15 gigabytes of Genshin Impact with the animated loading screen on. It's warm to the touch, but not alarmingly warm. Same goes after a good 20 minutes of Diablo Immortal. The phone is noticeably warm, but it remains comfortable to use. The only times I noticed the phone getting very warm was when I left it on a soft surface like a couch cushion while doing some intensive tasks like downloading massive game files. That's more on me though. The cooling system can't really do its thing when it's being smothered. The OnePlus 10T offers a spacious 6.7-inch OLED display with a 1080p resolution and a top refresh rate of 120 Hz. The panel itself is flat through the device edges are curved. It's not an LTPO display, which is like G-Sync on GPUs, where it basically lowers. It matches the refresh rate of your program to the refresh rate of the monitor. So yeah, it's not LTPO, which means it can't drop to extremely low refresh rates, but the screen will adapt normally between 60, 90, and 120 to minimize the drain on the battery. So yeah, this is mainly done, like it drops and lowers the refresh rate to whatever program that you have. Like for example, if you're gaming, it'll be at 120. If you're maybe watching a video, like a movie or something, it might be at 30 or 24. Basically, it's done to save battery. So yeah, it's not the brightest display. It's peak brightness of 950 nits. That's kind of disappointing, but anyway, for 700 bucks, it's pretty good. In the screens, there's a very good in-display fingerprint reader for biometric unlocking. After using the Pixel 6a's much less responsive reader for a few weeks, this one feels lightning fast. On a device whose whole premise is built on speed, it feels right at home. Companies like Google and Samsung have increased the number of years that they're committing to support devices with software updates, and OnePlus has followed suit. It is not offering quite as long support. Some Pixel and Galaxy devices get up to 5 years of security updates, but it's promising 3 3 OS version upgrades and 4 years of security updates for the 10T. That's not excellent, but it is good. And the 10T should be able to keep up well 4 years from now when it gets its last security patches. Yes, I think if anyone were to buy a 10T, they would probably use it for 3 to 4 years, and that's pretty much that's like the average life cycle for a OnePlus device. I think they've always kept it up with around 2 to 3 years for their products. So yeah, there's that. The camera system on the 10T feels a bit of an afterthought, and that's actually fine. It has all the members of the hardware. It has all of the hardware that I hope from a premium mid-range phone. A 50 megapixel main camera with stabilization, an adequate 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 16 megapixel selfie camera. There's also a 2 megapixel. Did they not mention a telephoto camera? Okay, anyway. There's also a 2 megapixel macro camera on the back panel that is useless, with its very low resolution and fixed focus. If you are wondering whether your photo is going to be in focus, you'll have a great time with it. Otherwise, OnePlus could have not done all us a favor and included a close focusing ultra wide instead, but it did not. The Hasselblad branding is completely missing, and in a group press briefing, OnePlus spokesperson Spencer Blank said that the company wanted to position it differently from the higher priced 10 Pro. Fair enough, using the Hasselblad logo probably doesn't come cheap, and the Hasselblad integration hasn't exactly improved OnePlus cameras by leaps and bounds anyways. Not much of a loss here. All this is to say that OnePlus cameras on the 10T are average. Photos in good light look nice and acceptable in low light. It sometimes takes the cameras to a few shots to get to a right answer, but it'll get there eventually. For once, exposure can drift around a little. I took 3 photos of my husband and son that looked a little too overexposed, and then finally a fourth with the right exposure and skin tones. It keeps shutter speeds high enough to get a fair number of sharp shots with moving subjects and moderate lighting. In very low light, there's capable night mode to bring out some of the good color and detail in static subjects. Exposure is a little squarey in video recording, but otherwise, clips look good up to the 4K 60 frames per second max. Oh, okay. The OnePlus 10T isn't a phone that tries to be everything for everyone, and I think that's great. It's smartly priced in the United States. There's not a whole lot else available at the same price point. It's a little pricier than the $600 Pixel 6 with the same 8 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, but the screen is bigger, and with a smoother 120 Hz refresh rate, it has extremely fast charging, and there's a combination of features that you'll definitely not get from the Pixel 6. I don't think that the Pixel 6 is a competitor to the OnePlus 10T. I think it's more suited towards something like the S22 FE or the Google Pixel 6 Pro. Not the base 6, but whatever. Overall, the 10T is an all-around class leader, and despite what OnePlus marketing might say, I don't think it really sets out to be one. In this price range, which is a tick below the $849 Galaxy S22, the Pixel 6 is still the best bet for most people. It offers a better holistic feature set, including a better camera, most robust IP68 waterproofing, and more frequent software updates for a longer lifespan. OnePlus made a phone that's good for the money in the 10T, but even if it's not good for most people in the US market, there's room at that table. Jeez. Alright. Well, this review I think is very, very well written, and I actually do recommend this phone. But make sure to try it out, like in person. Like, make sure to try out the phone before you actually buy it, because OnePlus isn't actually a well-known brand in the United States, especially because they don't usually work with like brands like AT&T, Verizon, because a lot of people in the United States buy phones on contracts directly from cellular network brands like AT&T, Verizon. I forgot the other one. There are many of them. Anyway, there's that. What do I think of the phone? I think it's pretty good. It's pretty similar to the OnePlus 10 Pro, and it's not exactly a successor, but it's just a refresh. And yeah, there's that. And that's it. Article by words, it'll be in the description down below. So, how many more stories do we have? It is 12:51. We have 1, 2, three, four stories. Can we do four stories in an hour? Yes, we can. Whew, I'm getting tired. Just gonna have a little bit of water. All right. Moving on to the second biggest topic of today. Indonesia unblocks Steam and Yahoo, but Fortnite and FIFA are still banned. So Indonesia, in order for their companies to comply with their laws about online content, actually banned a lot of companies, and one of those companies was Steam. So that was, sparred into a there were so many articles. I actually forgot to cover this last stream, but I'll leave a really good video made by some already gamers, aka Murahar, down below. I'll make sure to I actually will write it. Okay. Anyway, this article is also by The Verge. It'll be in the description down below. So yeah, Indonesia has lifted its ban on Steam and Yahoo now that both companies complied with the U.S. restrictive laws that regulate online safety. The Indonesian Ministry of Communication and Information, Cominfo, announced the news in a translated update on Twitter. Let's quickly give that a read. So the official commentary and Cominfo tweeted. I can't read that. Okay, the following is the latest status update regarding electronic system. Wait, is this a thread? No, it's not. Okay, it's here. So yeah, PayPal, Valve, Yahoo, and I don't know what the last one is, but anyway, announced the news in a translated updated on Twitter that Counter-Strike, CSGO, and Dota 2 are back online as well. Last week, Indonesia blocked access to Steam, PayPal, Yahoo, Epic Games, and Origin after the companies failed to meet a deadline to register with the country's database. This requirement is bundled with a border law called MR5 that Indonesia first introduced in 2020. The law gives the Indonesian government the authority to order platforms to take down content considered illegal, as well as request the data of specific users. In 2021, the digital rights group Electronic Frontier Foundation called the policy invasion of human rights. Although PayPal has yet to comply, Indonesia unblocked access for the service for 5 days starting July 31st to give users a chance to withdraw money and make payments, according to the Indonesian news outlet Antara News. PayPal reportedly plans on registering with the country's database soon. Epic Games and EA-owned Origin still remain banned in the country, which makes games like Fortnite and FIFA unplayable. The ban has sparked backlash among Indonesian users who have made the block Cominfo block Cominfo a trending hashtag on Twitter. Some Twitter users have resorted to using a VPN, a virtual private network, to play games from banned services. Now, whether or not this is legal is questionable, and I'll leave that up to you to decide if you would think a VPN is illegal or not. But anyway, there's no word on when Epic and Origin plan on complying with the country's registration requirement. The Verge reached out to both companies with a request for comment, but did immediately hear back. I think they will. I think Indonesia has over 100 million population. I think they will comply, because there might be a lot of people who are, users of Epic and Origin. So yeah, there's that. Question about is like using a VPN technically illegal? Maybe, maybe not. It's a very gray area. So, all right. Moving on to our second story. Once again, article by The Verge will be in the description down below. And our next story, which is also related to gaming, Blizzard cancels the development for the mobile version of World of Warcraft. So this is not a really like a big story here today. Hey, but anyway, this article is also by The Verge. Next couple of articles are also by The Verge, and they'll be in the description down below. So, Blizzard reportedly cancels World of Warcraft mobile game. The in-development mobile title was 3 years along before getting canned. Blizzard has canceled World of Warcraft, according to a report from Bloomberg. The game was made in collaboration with Blizzard's Chinese publishing partner NetEase, was in development for 3 years before a conflict of about financing terms halted the project. According to Bloomberg, the World of Warcraft mobile game was codenamed Neptune, as was supposed to be a mobile spin-off of the MMORPG. The cancellation comes at an interesting time as Blizzard makes a concerted push into the mobile market, developing original games for the platform. Back in May, the developer announced Warcraft Archlight Rumble, a mobile action strategy game, and in June it released Diablo Immortal, whose questionable monetization model has seemed to hamper its popularity. Blizzard and NetEase have been partners since 2008. The company co-developed Diablo Immortal, publishes Blizzard games like Hearthstone and World of Warcraft in China, and is a stakeholder in Blizzard's Overwatch League, owning the current world champion, the Shanghai Dragons. So yeah, there's that. Not really much for me to say, but I didn't really expect Blizzard to take off in the mobile gaming scene. But anyway, there's that. On to our final story of the gaming section, and then we just have one story that's pretty big as well. So yeah, there's a report coming that U.S. gamers are spending a lot less on video games now than they did in 2021, which is kind of surprising ish. I don't know. But anyway, this article is also by The Verge, and yeah, the video game industry growth has slowed down. The U.S. consumer spending on video game products has fallen by $1.78 billion in Q2, according to market research firm NPD. Overall, spending in video games in the United States totaled $12.35 billion in the recent quarter, down 13% year over year. The findings follow both Microsoft and Sony reporting revenue declines in gaming as the pandemic growth slows. Sony warned of a weaker PlayStation business earlier this week as it saw game software sales plummet 26% year over year. Sony blamed the slump on the lack of big PlayStation titles this year compared to 2021 and less time spending playing games in general. Microsoft's Xbox hardware revenue dipped 11% over the year in its recent quarter, alongside a 6% drop in Xbox content and services revenue and a 7% decline in overall gaming revenue. Nintendo is due to report its fiscal first quarter earnings on Wednesday, but the company forecast earlier this year that it expects to sell 21 million Switch consoles for its fiscal year that ended in March, down from 23.1 million the previous year. While overall spending on gaming has clearly declined across the industry in Q2, subscription content was the only segment to post positive gains. According to NPD, that growth is despite Sony launching its revamped what the hell? The growth is despite Sony launching its revamped PlayStation Plus subscription at the end of the quarter. Hardware unit sales were led by Nintendo Switch in the second quarter, according to the NPD, with the PS5 generating the highest dollar sales. Despite the decline in spending amid high rates of inflation and following a big period of growth, consumer spending continues to trend above the pre-pandemic levels, said Matt Pistakella, video game industry analyst at NPD. However, unpredictable and quickly changing conditions may continue to impact the market in unexpected ways in the coming quarters. Researchers at the UC San Diego have created. Oh wait, no, that's an ad. So yeah, there's that. It's pretty surprising, but anyway, it's kind of predictable. We're just like leaving a pandemic, and a lot of people have like stopped gaming and started going back to work and going back to school and spending a lot more time doing other things. It's kind of expected, but still, anyway, that's just my thoughts on it. Pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, article by The Verge, and it'll be down in the description. So on to our final news story, which is, I believe, the third biggest topic of today. The popular singer Shakira could face up to 8 years of jail for alleged tax fraud towards the Spanish government. Now this was trending. I'll tell you, this was trending. This was actually a pretty big story that and a lot of people are talking about it. So yeah, article by article by the USA Today will be in the description down below. So yeah, Shakira's tax fraud case. What is known about the charges and potential 8-year prison sentence? Colombian pop singer Shakira could face up to 8 years of prison in case where Spanish prosecutors have accused her of tax fraud. Shakira, whose name is Shakira Isabel is facing 6 charges alleged she failed to pay the Spanish government nearly $15 million in taxes between 2012 and 2014. The prosecutor said they will also seek a fine of $24.5 million US. The singer trusts her innocence and chooses to leave the issue at the hands of the law. Her public relations firm Laurenti Y. Cuenca said in a July 27 statement. Here's everything to know about the pending fraud case. Will Shakira go to trial for tax evasion? Shakira's tax fraud case is expected to go to trial after the 45-year-old singer rejected a settlement deal offered by prosecutors. A trial date has not been set yet. If she is convicted, prosecutors are asking the court to hand down a sentence of 8 years and 2 months. A judge can waive prison time for the first-time offenders if they are sentenced to less than 2 years behind bars. Tax fraud case, Spanish prosecutors seek 8-year jail. Oh wait, no, that's the same thing. When was Shakira accused of tax fraud? Prosecutors charged Shakira with tax evasion in December of 2018, alleged she failed to pay millions in taxes to the Spanish government between 2012 and 2014. Shakira listed the Bahamas as her official residence for tax purposes during those years, but has prosecutors say she was in fact living in Spain with her now ex-partner, Spanish soccer player Gerard Piqué, father of her 2 children. When was Shakira said what has Shakira said about the tax fraud trial? Shakira testified before a judge in 2019 as part of an investigation into her alleged tax evasion and denied any wrongdoing. Her PR firm said she immediately paid what she owed with interest once she was informed of the debt by the tax office. The case hinges on whether she lived during the years in the question. Spanish judge Marco Giobras wrote that his 3-year probe found that there existed sufficient and evidence of criminality for the case to go for trial. When is Shakira's tax dispute about? Experts think that this case is about the meaning of the word residence under Spanish tax law. It comes down to counting how many days in a year a person has lived in Spain. 1 day, 50 days, 365 days before considering a tax resident, says Douglas S. Stansky, a partner in Boston-based firm Civilian and Worcester who practices international tax law. Is one person considered a resident of the country by buying a house in that country even though that person is only there for 4 days? I think in this case, it's true that Shakira did spend time in Spain, but the real question is whether she spent enough time for him there to be considered a tax resident of the country. How do other entertainers avoid international tax issues? Tax lawyers help Shakira and other global performers figure out why they owe taxes based on their citizenship, where they live most of the time, and where they perform in any given year, says international tax law expert Kevin E. Thorne, managing partner of the Thorne Law Group in Washington. Thorne thinks Spanish authorities may not fully understand the complex interplay between different countries, laws, and international treaties when it comes to taxes. They are rushing to judgment without all the facts and without understanding all the laws that could come into play here, says Thorne, a former IRS lawyer. They're trying to pressure him to come to the table without all the facts being out there. Geez, how? Oh, wait, that's the last. All right. So why is Spain threatening Shakira with prison? So far, Spanish authorities have not presented any evidence publicly to suggest Shakira committed a tax crime, as opposed to a tax mistake, which I do believe. If she's immediately paid after this, I think this is just a case of it being a mistake, although a very expensive mistake and a very stupid mistake. And because do your taxes, you're 45 years old. But anyway, Thorne says he believes prosecutors haven't helped her case for a quick settlement by publicly threatening Shakira with prison before a trial. If a mistake was made about her taxes, a lawyer will fix it. I'm not sure if it's a criminal matter, Thorne says. I don't think this is a criminal matter either. I think this is just a mistake which was already solved, but it's just being dragged on for no reason. So, as in the U.S., Strancy says, most tax disputes in Spain are civil matters, not criminal matters. Most of the time in the U.S. like this, the government does not go to the criminal route. Strancy says, my guess is that Spanish authorities are trying to pressure her into settling the case by deploying the bad publicity and the threat of jail. So yeah, there's that. Well, I think she'll get the maximum sentence of 8 years and 2 months and a maximum fine of $20 million. Probably not. I think some fine will have to pay, and I think very unlikely that jail time is to be given here. Even if it's might be jail, I think it might be maximum of 6 months to 2 years, and even that is pretty far because the tax has been paid with any interest on that. So all that is left, that is justifiably you're supposed to be charged, is I'd say a fine. I think that's all that is to say. And I think that's the end of the story and the end of the show. Yes, the show is ending an hour early because I'm very tired. And I don't really have many stories to talk about. Also, I have a little bit of non-elaboration news where I don't really talk about it much. And so yeah, basically 2 topics. Yesterday was National Girlfriend Day, so if you want to celebrate that, go ahead. And one last thing, you guys remember Chris Chan, that dude who got arrested, a felony charge for doing some things with his mother, and he was set to go on trial in a couple of months, and right now he's currently in jail for the felony, and some of his letters that he sent were leaked to the internet. And if you want to go and read that, you can go and read that. I'm not going to really read it. I really don't want to lose more faith in humanity. So yeah, there's that. And that is the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all so much for watching. I will have it basically day after tomorrow on Friday night at 11 p.m. to 2 p.m. Hopefully. But I'll try and commit to the schedule again. So yeah, every Wednesday, every Friday, and every Saturday at 11 o'clock p.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. Indian Standard Time. You can convert it to whatever you want. So yeah, that's the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen. I will do the timestamps and all of these articles a little bit later as I have college in the morning. So yeah, anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I am out.